What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the Sneaker History Podcast. I'm Robbie, and I'm here with two good friends, local guys to the Pacific Northwest. We're all transplants, so we have a lot of similarities. It's going to be a great time. I'm here with Rohit and Mr. Mars Yard Overshoe, Aaron Hankins. How you guys doing?
I'm doing well. How are you, Aaron? Welcome to the show again.
Thanks for having me, guys. I'm doing excellent. I'm out in the studio right now. It's a little chilly here in the Pacific Northwest, but it's nice. It's fresh. It was refreshing. The sun was out today, so I got my vitamin D.
Yeah, it poked in and out this afternoon. That's what she said if you watch The Office. But it's going to be a great time. Aaron's been on the podcast before, back in the earlier days. I want to say within the first 100 episodes. And we talked about his journey as, working in Aramai, how he got to be working at Aramai and, fulfilling his dreams of working at Nike. If you ask him, things are still going great on that front. Happy camper. But we're here to talk about a follow-up to an episode that came out last week. We're going to be talking more about the Mars Yard Overshoe, the Mars Yard 2.0. Is it the 2.0 or 2.5? Like, what's the proper name of the new shoe?
2.5.
2.5.
Yes.
We're going to go into like a deep dive into Tom Sachs and the Nike shoes, what it means to be a wear tester. So before we get too far into it, I have to recommend our episode from last week with Rohit, Mike, and Nick, where they start this kind of conversation. We thought it'd be great to have Aaron come in and kind of answer some questions from that one and provide a little more insight. We got to start with the stuff we always do, though. We got to start with what we're rocking and what we're copping. So, Rohit, why don't you go ahead and hit us with the footwork?
Sure. Because we have a special guest, and this guest is about certain things in life, and one of those things is the attack mode, I decided I had to pay homage. So, the Kobe 10 HTM Shark Jaw. So, thank you for joining us. Thank you for indulging our curiosity about the overyard shoe and just whatever else, because one of the joys I've gotten since joining this show is getting more friendly with you, Aaron, and it's been one of those things where I just love the tangents that you go on with your story, and it's all under that pretense of attack mode, so I'm here for that. So thank you again for joining.
Nice.
With the subtle flex. Like that's a rare shoe with the beautiful purple fly wire. Man, that's a hell of a Kobe shoe. Kobe 10.
And this is a low top, right? It's a low or a mid? Low.
Shorty got low.
Now is the sneaker history? This is also going to be on YouTube, right?
Correct.
Boom. Can you just put the outsole up on the screen? Because I forget what the bottom of the outsole looks like. I love all the.
At Dante Halls, it just throws up the X.
But it also has the crosshatch like squared pattern on the rest of the shoe. It's like ooh.
Yeah.
I can see it. It's like the little texture, and it's like translucent. You see through it, right?
Yeah. It's the Kobe 10. It was a weird time because he was hurt. But you got engineered mesh versions, then you got low and high elites. That would be the elite. And I'm talking for it. I don't know why I'm explaining the shoe for you.
Sneaker History Podcast. Hell yeah.
This is Sneaker History, but this is, if there was a CSI Miami episode, this would be Sneaker History Kobe episode, where you two are just going to be here, and I'm going to be David Caruso. Occasionally, I'll take the glass on and off and yell, yeah, randomly, but this is you boys. All too easy.
That's great.
Nice.
What are you looking to cop, though? What's on the radar?
In terms of a shameless plug and a very flawless segue, this new shoe that's coming out, the Cosmic Unity, and I think there are 3 colorways that have been kind of displayed to the public. I really like the amalgam colorway, and I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, but there's just something about that speaks to me and the inner 90s Nickelodeon child that I am, so I'll go with that.
Wait a minute now. Well, I'm a simple dude and I have a simple mind. Amalgam. What color is that on the Sesame Street color wheel?
On the Sesame Street color wheel, we've got the blue of the Cookie Monster. We've got on the midsole, and then we've also got a toothpastey green. Almost, I would say, if Oscar the Grouch was really feeling sick and anemic on a particular day, maybe that shade of green.
Got it. Okay.
You know what, my Sesame Street history isn't where my sneaker history is, so I don't know who was the orange Muppet. I don't even know if they're considered Muppets, but I'll go with a nice little orange tab at the back.
Nice. I think it was Bunsen.
It's not the gray one,
but that's Muppets.
No, you're right, because that shade is very much the hair color of Beaker. So once again, well done.
Bow down.
Nice.
So that's the not. So there's the black one, which we've all seen. There's the gray one, and then yours must be the third one. So I don't remember seeing.
Yep,
a
that's the
greenish
third one.
orange.
The other two were the black one that you mentioned, which I think is the first release coming up, and then in maybe a highlight to another episode we've done recently, they've marketed the gray one as the space hippie. So are we going to start seeing the South Beachification of the space hippie when it comes to other shoes now? We'll see.
Maybe it's interesting to see the crater foam on the Galaxy Cosmic. So many damn words. The Cosmic Unity on the Charlie Murphy's Unity. There's got to be that crater, which is such a great material. Converse is using it. Nike's using it. We can go on and on for that. I actually am not going Kobe. I'm going somebody that I argue with Aaron frequently is not as good as LeBron James. But I wore the Chicago's today. I'll pull my mic out so I can actually get in. I always like to go one red, one white. It pains my heart that these are like $1,400 now to buy. Nobody should ever have to pay that much money for an OG colorway of ones.
Nope.
I was very lucky to get these for retail, and I met Tommy Wiseau wearing the shoe. So I have a picture with Tommy Wiseau in this exact pair. Yeah, that's killer. But yeah, man, I mean, I probably wear these. I just had to remember, I have a stack of ones, and I'm like, this one comes out today. So hashtag wear your shoes. It's a commodity if you don't wear it, and a commodity really isn't worth anything sentimentally. Go make money off it or wear it. So highly recommend the wear option. For me though, I saw a Griffey Air Max 1 with like a royal blue with white with a little bit yellow green on there. I believe that's an OG colorway, if not very close to one. That shoe's fire, man. Like the Air More Up Tempo and the Barclays, a couple shoes have just been hard to pinpoint when they release. The Griffeys are another one of those where I see it pop up as a release and then it's sold out right away. Another store has it, sold out right away. So I'm trying to get a hand on a pair of Griffeys. So those are definitely on my radar. We got to go to the man of the hour, though. I know what you're going to be wearing the next 8 weeks. So let's get a little taste.
This is what I'll be wearing is the Mars Yard 2.5. I forget exactly what the color is on the box, but I think all the materials are the natural colors of the materials. We'll get into more of the shoe itself, I guess, later on. So this is what I'm wearing, and in terms of copping, I'm not a copper, but if I were to cop something, I do believe this Nike Go Fly Ease. Am I saying?
Yeah.
Go Fly Ease. I would definitely buy one of those because I'm a slip-on kid for my entire life.
You're preaching to the choir. It took me probably 25 years to properly tie my shoes, so I'm glad to see we also have that in common.
Yes.
I'm not to be cynical. I'm interested in the shoe also, but I'm curious if it's as seamless as everybody perfectly slowly walking their foot into it. Everybody's just like, oh, let me get this for Instagram. My foot's gonna slowly slide in and gently go down. Because in everyday wear, it's slam, slam, go. Like heel, toe, go. So I'm curious how it performs in those kind of conditions. But they've wear tested for that. We're going to get into wear testing. But they've had people probably just slam their heel into that thing like they do a pair of free runs, where you just like smash the heel down and you use it like a pair of slides. We've all seen it. Maybe you've done it. But while we're just talking shoes, we've talked Cosmic Unity already. We've talked Go Fly Ease, all within 10 minutes. There's one big one. So we have like brand new tech and we have brand new materials. So that's two different things. Then we have the oldest shoe in the book, 1985's neutral gray Air Jordan 1. I've been entering raffles. That shoe, if you don't know, the sneaker history aspect of it is it's never retroed. The neutral gray forever has been a cracked, crinkled collar piece of vintage nostalgia that I see on pages every now and again for a couple $1,000s. And I'm like, well, if I curated and I was rich, maybe. But it's great to see that shoe come back. Do you like to see more unreleased Air Jordan 1s finally retro? Does that interest you? Even though you're not a copper, is that something that like that's cool?
I like how it's very nuanced colors that you haven't seen a whole lot of. How some people geek out because it reminds them immediately of when they first had a pair, or when the first retro or vintage pair that they had. Like I know a good buddy of mine named Bima. He has a pair of ones that has a purple swoosh on it, and I don't know when the ones had a purple swoosh on it. I also like the ones that are like the just slight hints of like the metallic green one.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's a couple of them that are kind of cool. I think that it has become like this timeless sort of design shoe, and you can kind of do it in any color and flip it anyway. It's just like it's the Nike version of a Chuck Taylor. I mean, the Air Force One, you could kind of like battle it out between those two, but it's like Chuck Taylor high top, Jordan 1 high top, like same deal. So
Mm-hmm.
I think you're very well with your opinion, because I think for me, when I do see shoes that have forever been lost in time and then all of a sudden they're mid there for a timely retro or a timely release, it comes back to the narrative. And I know I tend to be a narrative nerd when it comes to that thing, but if it's a proper story and they're able to articulate it in the way that only big brands like Nike can, then I'm all for it. But then there are also times where I'm like, you know what? I will be more of a robber and not a copper. No, I'm kidding. I probably
yeah,
won't be copying certain shoes, but I'm always a sucker for a good story. So in your case, Aaron, what you've articulated about the neutral gray one, as well as some of the conversations we've had with Robbie in previous episodes, it's a cop for me in the sense that I will try for raffles. And then if I don't get them, I will probably still try for other people, because that's just what we want to do here at Sneaker History.
Those
absolutely.
those people being me. 'Cause
Yes.
I need
Usually, yeah.
e-
I'm
every
throwing you
entry
the
I can get
lob.
on
You
those
are
bad
hopefully
boys.
dunking the oop one day.
I'm trying to. I mean, there was that I want to say mishap where somebody posted it was only 25,000 pairs and the internet got really angry. But we're going to focus on happy internet things. We have happy internet talk. We have a positive review. Things are brightening up. It's sunny in Portland. Rohit, do you want to hit us with the review for this week
Absolutely.
episode?
This is from a homie by the name of Franz Feets. Am I in the Room is the title. Fellas, this pod is giving me life every episode. I feel so entrenched in the conversations y'all have that I find myself speaking up in an empty room thinking I'm there with you. Love how natural and flowing the topics are. Keep up all the great work. I know we all have day jobs, but we appreciate the time and energy y'all put into the pod every episode. All love. Robbie, I believe you have connections to the aforementioned Franz Feet. Is that
One Love. Yes. Just moved to Portland. Probably looking for a job at Nike right now. So is anybody seeking openings, reach out to him. This is a great episode because all three of you, when the internet can be a good place. I met Aaron before he moved to Portland. Even he was still living in L.A. Rohit, I met you through the internet, and I met Franz too. So it's like when there's not bad stuff, there's good stuff. So you just got to remember that it's not all gloomy. 2021 can look up in some fashion, but
Absolutely.
it's been such positivity around our main topic today. So, like I alluded to earlier, we had a whole episode mostly dedicated to this and me getting gifts last week. I went back and listened to the episode. I love listening to episodes I'm not on. It's fun to hear everybody give their own, point of view without me butting in. So it's fun to hear that. But the internet's been on fire for how long ago did the opening for the? How long ago did submissions open up for the Mars Yard wear testing? Was it like last month? Longer than a month ago?
I guess let me start by saying the views expressed on this
Yes.
podcast do not reflect those of the company for which I work for, past, present, or future, and we'll leave it at that. The submissions for the NikeCraft WearTest program were, I believe it was the Monday before Christmas. So I think Christmas was on a Wednesday this year. So Monday is when sort of the call went out for submission videos on Tom Sachs's Instagram page.
Awesome. And there's been it's that sparked positivity within itself. I believe that the whole purpose was just to show how you would use this shoe. Like what would make you a good candidate for an 8-week program. to test out the new Tom Sachs joint. So that sparked positivity. Then we see people, friends, getting the actual pairs and enjoying them. The best part is I don't see the shadiness in terms of, oh man, like he got a pair and I didn't, or like I wish I got a pair, I'm salty. It's all been pretty positive. It's just like, okay, dude got a pair, Aaron got a pair, ABZ I believe got a pair also. Like, good for them, good for you. There's no like animosity. It's like everybody's just happy to see this shoe out in the wild, and that's been super sick. There's a lot more to the shoe. There's the whole Tom Sachs side to the Nike side. So I think that's where we're going to start off. Because Aaron, if your name doesn't give it away on Instagram, Mars Yard Overshoe, you're pretty into the Tom Sachs lifestyle. I'd say you're probably a leader in that space.
Thank you.
Let's just start off with like
Robbie. Before you go
Yeah.
on, I just for the folks that are listening on the podcast, there are much smarter Tom Saxian folks out there. Europa and back. I'm talking to you. There's a couple other people. Gabe, I'm looking at you. So we like to, at least in the Saxian community, we like to look at it like college. I'm maybe a 201 professor, and somebody like Martin is probably a 501 or a 601 professor. So, but thank you for the compliment, Robbie.
You're still teaching classes. Break down where that name comes from, what show and all that.
The Sachsian Syndicate, or Sachsian, is a play off of Tom Sachs, and it came from The Wire. And I don't know if any of the listeners remember the season of The Wire. I don't know, was it 4 or 5 when it was they were at the newspaper, and they kept wanting to find articles that had a Dickensian aspect, and that's like Charles Dickens, and they wanted articles that sort of portrayed a Charles Dickens type story, and they would say Dickensian, and I was like, what? And at the beginning, way back when the Syndicate first started, we were trying to think of a name, and I just started calling things Saxian. Like, if you did something in a style that mimicked Tom Sachs or was like in homage to Tom Sachs, well, that's a Saxian sculpture. That's something that it has influences of Tom Sachs into it. So does that make sense?
Makes total sense. So, I mean, let's ask the obvious question. There's people out there in the room who don't want to ask, who's Tom Sachs, and like, what does Tom Sachs do?
Whew,
there's people, I mean, I know it's a multifaceted question, but the spark notes, as best as you know, for someone who's just like, I don't want to ask my friends who he is because I don't want to seem uncool. Like,
thank you for asking
he's an
that
artist.
question.
He's an artist, which all of us are. So he's no different than the rest of us. He's just had his art shown in galleries all over the world. He's a sculptor, a bricoleur, somebody who takes found objects and collects them and turns them into a statement or a piece of art. He's from Connecticut, I believe. He has a studio in New York. His backstory is really awesome. You can go on YouTube and read a lot of different stories about him. But really the thing that draws me to him is that he uses common materials. He uses plywood and screws and foam core and cardboard. And if you look at some of his works, like he had, I don't have the art book here. He made a Sub-Zero refrigerator out of plywood, fully functioning. He made an airplane lavatory completely out of foam core. And foam core is just like an art material that it's a lightweight and you can shape it and turn it into different things. So he's like a master maker. Is probably the that's a funny play on words, but he's a master maker.
Yeah.
And the whole story goes is that I'm gonna mess the year up, but there was an event. Mark Parker, the former CEO of Nike, was at an event. Tom Sachs was at the event, and Tom Sachs just went straight up to him, was like, "Yo, your shoes are trash. Like, they fall apart. Like, I wear the same shoes every day, and I have to fix this thing and I have to fix that thing." And through that relationship, they kept in touch with each other, because Mark Parker at the time was also trying to bring that art influence to Nike. And you see it now with Virgil, Martine Rose, like a bunch of the collaborators are artists and things of that nature. But Tom was one of the first. And their relationship built. And Mark Parker at the time said, "Listen, if you think you can do it better than us, show us." So that's where NikeCraft came from. And NikeCraft is a 50-50 partnership between Nike and Tom Sachs. And it's both sides will tell you that NikeCraft isn't it can't be a Nike thing. It has to be a Nike and a Tom thing. It's Tom talks about it in some of his videos on YouTube that it's a relationship that one part can't do it without the other. So it's very I believe the word is symbiotic. Like it has to sort of roll together. In his studio, he has a core set of tenants. They're called 10 bullets. So you'll see people wearing 10 bullets shirts, hats. Here I got a bag with
next to me?
a patch on it, and these 10 bullets are his studio rules, and it's really cool because like as an artist and when you have a studio, like people want to come and visit the studio, and he at a certain point was like, listen, before you come into my space, watch this film. So I would tell anybody that's listening to Sneaker History Podcast right now, if you want to understand Tom Sachs, watch 10 Bullets.
Yes.
And probably watch it and then like an hour later watch it again, and then maybe a week later watch it again. And then from 10 Bullets you can go and explore. I think Tom has over 50 movies on YouTube of all different processes, all the different things that he's made. He's a master storyteller. He's a super smart marketer. You know, like I'm kind of giving him the pat on the back now. But that's who he is. So does that answer the question?
It very much so does.
So if you don't mind me following up on that, Aaron, what about it? Because I know you had mentioned the common materials aspect of it as well, but what kind of led you down this path to academia in a sense? Because the way you guys are speaking about how you view the syndicate, lack of a better term, it is very academic in its approach. It's very academic in how it's structured. And I was just wondering, did that appeal to you? Because one of the vibes that I've always got off being your friend on social media is you're constantly learning, you're constantly evolving. Is that part of the reason why? Or?
Absolutely. Also, Tom talks about that we have to show the scars of our labor. So the reward for good work is more work, and to know that you've put in the labor, there has to be a scar. So if you look at his work, all of his work shows the labor that was put into it. He paints plywood and then he cuts it so that you can see the chip marks, right? Like the there's so many different things that he does that you can look at and immediately you can see the work being done. He makes white t-shirts because if you wear a white t-shirt, you're going to get dirty. It's going to show. Like the colors of the overshoe, the colors that are picked for the Mars Yard shoes, like those are all by design. Like the exploding poncho, it's white for a reason because it's meant to be worn. It's meant to develop a patina. Like patina, we think of patina with leather, but anything can gain a patina, which is just an aged look. And I think that's the thing that drew when I saw Tom's work, I was like, wow, this is so intricate and detailed, yet it's not perfect. Tom always talks, he has another saying where he says, you know, I can't make an iPhone as perfect as Apple can without a sign of a human hand being put on it. But Apple can't make a Tom Sachs sculpture the way that I can, because they want it to be so perfect and they want all the lines to match up and they want everything to be seamless, right? So that's kind of where it started. And what I did is that I was looking on the internet and I'm trying to find people that are into Tom Sachs. So I kept running into people that had the 2.0s, or I would run into people that had a shirt, right? And I would just be like, hey, like, do you know anything about any of his other works? And they're like, no, not really. Like, I just got it because I saw other people with it. And I was like, okay, cool. And then I started posting more of the stuff that I liked. And again, social media, you got to love it. Somebody was like, hey, you need to talk to this guy. And my buddy Gabe, he lives in Pennsylvania. He was on the same level as me. Like we enjoy Tom Sachs for the sneakers, but there's other levels and layers to what Tom Sachs teaches that can make our lives better.
Oh, fantastic. And I was kind of hoping to use that as a segue to talk about one of the bullets that I found most intriguing, which was this concept of Leatherface. Am I articulating that properly? So do you want to,
yeah.
if you could touch on that as well, because I think it's one of those things where what you've just summed up, I totally get that bullet point now, because now as you're explaining the mythology and the imagery behind this institution, Leatherface is probably the most tangible aspect of that. So if you don't mind sharing with our listeners about that.
Sure. Leatherface, there's if you watch 10 Bullets and you read some of the notes on it, Leatherface is more about establishing rules for your studio and a code of conduct for yourself to follow. And by setting a set of rules and standards for yourself and having Leatherface, Leatherface is just another word for an idol or a place in your studio where you dump money. If Robbie, if you leave the lights on in the attic, you got to feed Leatherface, right? If you lock the cat in the room, if you forget to scoop out the kitty litter one day, like you didn't do your assigned work, you have to pay for not doing what you said that you were going to do. And that's kind of what Leatherface is. I'm going to be interested to see what the comments say when people listen to this, if they're going to be like, Aaron doesn't know what he's talking about. I need to come on the show and out. Because the cool thing about Tom Sachs is that, like, the cool thing with all artists, right? All art in general is that the perception is within the person. How you look at something and interpret it is all on yourself, because you can look at somebody like Tom and he was influenced by Noguchi. He was influenced by Le Corbusier. He was influenced by Sol LeWitt, and he took what inspired himself from them and took it for himself. And was it an exact copy and an exact replica? No, he formed it and made it so that it fit within his lifestyle. So Tom right now gives us 10 bullets, and he says, listen, you can follow this until you make up your own set of 10 bullets. So that's a cool part.
And we'll link the 10 bullet video. I watched it with Aaron, and I had to go back and watch it again. I didn't do the third one a week later, but the first time, probably not going to make sense. But it does break down the rules. And those rules overflow into a
Life.
big, life. Not just, I mean, of course, life. The big important thing. I'm thinking smaller, micro, unimportant sneakers. Like, if you try to buy anything from Tom Sachs' website, his store, be it was it a geothermic dome?
Geodesic dome, yes.
Geodesic dome, or whatever else you could be trying to buy. Before you could check out, it makes you do a little pop quiz. It might be like, what color do you not use in the studio? It might be, what's the reward for good work? So these little things, these little tidbits, they overflow into the consumer side. And that's where I think Tom Sachs as a product, not as a man, as a product, and sneakers really intersect. Because in your description of the Syndicate, you had people reaching out to you talking about the shoe sparked it. So it started with a pair of Tom Sachs shoes, like easily identifiable. They're on people's feet. You see them. The 10 Bullets does that same thing. It might not be on your feet. It might be on your shirt. It might be a patch. It might be something, but it's a designation that you are in the know. Like, if you have a pair of Chicago ones on, you see somebody else, like, that guy likes shoes, because you're not just going to average Joe own that shoe. So, like, that intersects. And the scarcity of product, and not in a negative way, but just like the desire of the product to get your hands on the art, be it a pair of shoes or whatever Tom's making. There's just all these intersections between the two. So, like, you obviously love sneakers. In our other episode, you talk about, growing up in Philly and Iverson and, old Nikes, all the good stuff. But it seems like it was a perfect marriage for you. Do you see a lot of overlap of people with shoes and Tom Sachs, or is it just you happen to see a couple that had the shoes and they're more just into Tom Sachs? Like, where do they intersect?
They definitely intersect around the shoe, but I also find there's a lot of people that feel that they need the shoes to validate their relationship with Tom, and that's definitely not the case. And it's like, oh man, I'm such a great cool Tom Sachs fan, but I don't have the shoes. And I'm like, that doesn't take away from your experience. Did you buy the $1 sticker, 10 bullet sticker? Then you're a part of the club, right? Can you name 3 of the 10 bullets? Then you're a part of the club. Like, that's the level of entry is that low. Like, actually the level of entry is that you get a white t-shirt and you get a Sharpie and you mark 10 little bullets on it with a Sharpie. That's you're in the club now, because you understand that it's about using what's around you to sort of come in and be around us. That's it's a Venn diagram where in the middle You have the
Yeah.
sneakerhead and you have the art snob, and then as that wherever that overlap is, it's a pretty big overlap. You have the Mars Yard 2.5, you have NikeCraft, you have all that kind of in the middle there.
But from like a personality thing, do you see the same type of like, I would say in a similar way, Tom Sachs sparks like fanaticism, like I have fanaticism towards Kobe. I'm a big fan. Like, do you see like that kind of overlap? Because the 10 Bulls lets you in the club the same way you could say, you could try to ask somebody, how many rings does Kobe have? You could try to ask him something that like verifies they're in the club.
There's a little bit. I think that most people who own something that's Tom Sachs use it. So, hey, I have one pair of his shoes. I wear those shoes. Hey, I have two of his shirts. I wear the shirts. There are a few people that are collectors that will collect it and buy little cases and put things up like that. But that's a very small majority. It's generally the people that are wearing it and using it. And we're all like, the other part that I kind of missed there was we're all curious, and we're curious individuals, and we want to know, like, hey, what's this material made out of, and what makes this one a little bit better than that one, and we're always trying to search for like a better way to do things or a more sustainable way of doing things. So that's the like one of the like the underlying sort of like personality trait that I see in folks that are around Tom Sachs is that they're really curious about trying to improve themselves.
Sounds idealized. Like we wish everybody would wear their sneakers. If you have a pair of Kobe's, wear your Kobe's. Enjoy them.
I mean, I was going to say that's what I kind of get as a relative outsider to the Tom Sachs experience, where it's one of those things where they're almost handpicking what you had alluded to, Robbie, what we as the sneaker history or the sneaker industry want our consumers to do, which is try the product on, bury it, make it almost unusable, unrecognizable, because then that leads us to that next evolution. And it's that concept of you being the receiver of what the designer is sending and making sure that there is a thoroughness there between the two. Because at the end of the day, you and I and Aaron have friends that are in that particular industry. And I think it goes a long way when you tell somebody, hey, I wore your shoe and I ran it down into the ground. And maybe that's a nicer way of going up to a Mark Parker and saying, hey, your shoe is trash because I keep beating it up every day and I keep having to fix it. But I think that goes a long way in not only feeding their ego, but also feeding that creative beast that's within them to say, okay, what's the next step? What do I do to reach that next level? Whether it's a next ring like Kobe or just the next evolution of a shoe like the 2.5.
Mm-hmm. Well, like the feedback aspect is really unique, especially with the anecdote of Tom telling Mark your shoe's trash. Like with general consumers like us, we pay, like we give our vote with our money. Like, okay, this shoe is successful. I like this shoe. I bought it. But Aaron, you're in a much different place with the 2.5 because you're giving feedback over X amount of time with the product to then, I guess the next step is like ambiguous, kind of like they sanitize the shoe and then we'll figure out what happens then. But like there's probably going to be some input received from you and the other 149 wear testers. So like describe to me what is the job of a wear tester in this bubble of Tom Sachs. Like what's your job over the next 8 weeks?
Well, the job is to wear the shoes. We had a Zoom call at the beginning of this week. You guys probably saw it on his Instagram, where it was just a screen full of a bunch of faces. I was on there, and they just said, "Hey, wear them." Tag NikeCraft Wear Tester, beat them up. Tom was very like, he said, wear them as you would normally wear them. Don't go looking for, a tree stump grinder, or don't go looking for like the hot lava bed to like try to tiptoe around. He was just like, wear them as you normally wear them. Yeah, the shoes will go back at the end of the wear test period. How it stands right now, I believe, is that every week we'll get new challenges, And the challenges will not only be for the people that have the shoes, but they'll be for anybody who has a body who wants to join us. It's not, I don't even think that it's like contained to just Nike shoes. Like if you want to join us in these wear testing trials, come. The reward for good work is more work. On Tom's Instagram, there is a phase 1 and a phase 2. So I'm in phase 1. There'll be a phase 2. There's a lot of people that were bummed because they didn't get selected for phase 1. I tell everybody, like, you think about astronauts when they set up the space program, like the guy who got on the rocket first, he didn't go to the moon, right? But he had an important job to do, which was to take the shuttle up or take the rocket up, make sure everything works, right? And that's how I look at like me wearing this shoe. It's like, okay, I give initial wear, I go and do my things, I give feedback, the shoes go back to Tom or to Nike, they repair them if they need to be repaired, and then they go out to another group of people. The whole story with Nike and Tom Sachs, there's been multiple shoes, and the shoes with Tom and Nike have evolved over time, and we're at a point, I believe, in where Tom is at, where it's time for, like, the 2.0 came out in, I think it was 2016 or 2017, I forget exactly when, but I mean that's almost 5 years ago, and now it's time for the next shoe, right? But to do the next shoe, you need to do wear tests, you need to do these other things. And the 2.5 is this wear test point before you go to the 3.0. At least that's the kind of the rumors. Like, I listened to a Clubhouse call with Tom, like right before New Year's, where he talked a little bit about like all of the feedback that we give him is going to go into the next iteration, whatever that may be. And I don't know, like I don't have any like inside knowledge. I'm trying to stay very consumer centered with everything that I'm doing, because I know that like there's a gray area with me as an employee and also as me kind of being a part of this. So did that answer the question?
It did. Ro, do you have any follow-up to that?
No, I mean, I think I was able to pick up what you were putting down. It's interesting as you were talking, because I know I've had some experience working at Nike as well. The bullets almost serve as, I would say, not a copy, but an extension of similar to what Nike has with the Maxims, where we had these, I think there were 11 at that time, and correct me if I'm wrong, Aaron, because I haven't been back in 4 years, so maybe they've gotten rid of
11.
Some. 11?
It was 11, and now we're at 5.
You're back at 5. Okay, you're at 5. Which it's these North Stars that help us, whether we're in IT or in design, making sure we're doing the right thing. We're always on the offense, and that's kind of what I appreciated about it. And this is something where I'll use as a segue, because you and I kind of had a conversation after last week's episode where I was fascinated about the testing component of it, because I've seen your videos. I've read a little bit about his attention to detail, him in this case being Tom. How do you feel when you're taking down notes about your day in the shoe? Like, is there a template? Is there a format? Or is that part of the beauty of Tom Sachs, is the fact that you can kind of set your own rules?
That's exactly right. So we each got a little notebook here. If for those of you listening to the podcast, I'm holding up an olive drab 10 bullets notebook available on Tom Sachs's website. It has a wear tester stamp on it, and it also has a NikeCraft stamp on it, and also has an issue date, which is January 22nd, 2021. Yeah, it's blank. We fill it out as needed. What I'm thinking, in our meeting on Monday, he talked about this being a conceptual art project, and conceptual art meaning art that's created within a set of boundaries, so or a set of rules. And he's already started to talk about tying sport, which has rules and has boundaries, and conceptual art. And it's where we tie the artist to the athlete, is in that space. So the first week, we didn't really get any direction like, hey, write down how many steps and do this and to do that, because that becomes very professorial and it's linear, and it's like, you do this. Tom has always been like, here's a blank canvas, put down what we need you to put down. Right now, the first challenge is required reading. So on Monday, they sent out a syllabus of books and movies and things that they want us to understand and learn, because the whole group of 149 other wear testers, they may not be as nuanced into some of the like the books that Tom has referenced, like Saul LeWitt or Yoko Ono or Endurance by Ernest Shackleton. So there's all these different things that he's kind of like, hey guys, I want you to wear these shoes for 8 weeks. He said, hey, I know that everybody has busy lives. Try to wear them at least one time a day. Don't do anything really stupid in them because they are going to go on to somebody else. We're going to do challenges over the next 8 weeks. The first week, here's your like homework. Watch Dune. Like I'm trying to think of some of the other things that are on there. Watch Paradox Bullets. Watch 10 Bullets. Watch learn how to surf. Like all of the Tom Sachs movies to kind of like bring people up, so that when he says ABK, we know what he's talking about. When he says, hey, you know, fear is in the mind, like we know that that's a reference from Dune. Like, so
Makes total sense. It's like I was curious if you had a book. I know you're a notebook kind of guy anyway, so I figured you would be taking little notes regardless if one was sent or not. But that just so the imperfection of the notebook itself kind of speaks to the style of everything. Because obviously it's a perfectly fine notebook, but just it's kind of there's not a lot of uniformity. It's just like it's practical. It works. So what I'm curious about, and I'm sure other people have this question too, the shoes behind you, the overshoe, that isn't like the two. That's in its own category outside of the like. What's the designation? So we have the first Mars Yard, then that one came out. Now we're at 2.5. Like, where do they lie on the timeline?
The overshoe is the rainy day child of the 2.0, and the 2.0. I know that somebody is going to probably know the material better than me, but it was a very very breathable mesh. People that own the 2.0 Mars Yard 2.0 will tell you that it was like wearing a sandal. It was breathable. It was a great summer shoe, and everybody in Tom Sachs' studio lives in New York, and they'd have to wear the studio issued shoe, which is the Mars Yard 2.0, and they'd have to wear it in the rain, the sleet, the slush. And Tom, I think it's actually in the Nike book that just came out over the holidays, where they talked about the overshoe, and they kind of talked a little bit about the development. But the overshoe is it's a boot that goes over the Mars Yard 2.0. So the Mars Yard 2.0 is in that shoe. The white sort of shroud that's around it is Dyneema, which is the strongest material in the world. And yeah, there's a shoe on the inside, which is the Mars Yard shoe. And now, if you work in the studio and you need to go out in the rain and in the mud, you can wear the overshoe. And that was before the 2.5 came out. So the way that I understand the story is that like everybody got the overshoe and they're wearing the overshoe and people are cutting the overshoe, and you know, then I see like people in Tom's studio and they're like rolling it down, and then I see other people that have cut it, and I'm like, okay, like it doesn't seem to be very practical for most people. Like there's something there that people don't like to wear it all rolled up. They want to kind of get rid of the most endearing factor of the shoe. It's like you buy a Ferrari and then you rip the engine out. Like, you know, that's what I try to tell people. You know, like I want to let people be creative and do whatever they want with the shoe, but at the same time, like it costs as much as it costs because of that white stuff that's on the outside of it. That's why it costs what it costs. That's really expensive material, right? But everybody's like, no, I need to get to what's inside. And I'm like, okay, so you know, you buy this really nice pickup truck, and then you turn it into you buy this SUV and you turn it into a convertible, and the roof doesn't work. Were you gonna take this SUV out in the forest with no roof on it? Like, anywho, I digress.
No, I think that's a
makes sense.
really funny quote, because that reminds me of a quote that the Spanish team Real Madrid in 2001, they had this era of Galacticos, which was every member of the team was a world-class star. And probably the least prominent in terms of their Q rating was their defensive midfielder, Claude Makélélé, and he was sold to another team. And when they asked all the other stars, Zinedine Zidane put it best, where he goes, why add another layer of gold paint on the Bentley when you've taken the engine out? And that's exactly what you've kind of summed up there.
Beautiful. That's the quote of quote. But I mean, so people trying to get around what makes the overshoe good. You've embraced that, and you did so to a point where there's a video you made, and we'll link that here too. But you have like tips on how to make the like wearing the overshoe more wearable in its
Yeah.
fully funked, fully fledged state. So like, what are little tweaks you've done?
Well, I guess the origin of the story is that I was obsessed with the shoe the minute that I saw it. I knew that trying to get the 2.0s for whatever they were going for on the secondary market, and it's actually interesting. You don't find too many worn pairs of 2.0s because people that wear them like them. So it's kind of like a closed market. And when the overshoe came out, it was extremely polarizing. And I just gravitated towards. I'm a polarizing person as well. Like, and I just gravitated towards it. And I mean, I still work at Nike, and that is my shoe. Like, I developed an identity around wearing that shoe, and part of it is that nobody else wore it. I looked online, I didn't see anybody else wearing the overshoes. They all had it up on a bookshelf, and they were like, "Oh, space, going to the moon," and they'd have all these like space analogies, but it was still clean and white. It didn't look like it had never been worn before. So I already don't have a lot of pairs of shoes. I only have 5, and this was in my rotation. And I just started wearing it, and people were like, at Nike, you know, that you're every day you got to wear something different. So when you wear the same thing over and over again, they're like, when are you not going to wear this? And I'm like, 100 days. I'll wear it for 100 days, and you know, whatever that turned out to. And then it kind of like, I didn't talk about this on the last episode, but I met Michael Jordan while wearing the overshoes. And the second day that I had these, I was in a training room, and we were getting ready to have a break, and they were like, "Hey, the Jordan team's in one of these other rooms. Just if you see Michael Jordan." And so I stepped outside. I had my overshoes on; they were fresh. And somebody that was in the training with me was like, "Hey, what are those?" And I like bent over, and I get down on my knees, and I'm explaining it to her. And then I hear somebody say, "What are those?" And I look straight ahead, and I see the jeans, and I
Were
and
they
I
boot
start
cut?
to.
Were they boot cut?
Come on, man. Man. It's Mike.
Yeah,
It's
it's
MJ. It's
money.
Black
It's
Cat,
money.
right? So I'm scrolling up, and I'm like, okay. And I see Larry Miller. I'm like, okay, that's Larry Miller. And I keep going, and I'm like, oh gosh, it's Mike. And Mike's like, are those Nikes? And I like, guys, if I had ever like quick draw McGraw, I took the shoe off my foot, like. And I had it up in his face, and I was like, "Yeah, it's Tom Sachs Nike. Here's the Nike swoosh. Hey, look, there's a shoe on the inside." And he's like, "What is this bag on the outside?" And I was like, "Oh, it's made out of Dyneema. It's like this super strong, ultralight material. It protects you from the rain." And he's just like, "You're gonna need that in Portland." And then he walks away, and everybody's like, "Oh my gosh, you talked to Michael Jordan. What did he ask you?" And I was like, he wanted to know what this overshoe thing was about. And it wasn't until later that I realized, I was like, huh. So Michael's seen probably, I don't know, maybe 200-300 concept shoes from Tinker, like all of the great Jordan designs that have gone through. He gives approval for most of those, right? And he had to stop and be like, what are these white bagged, blue soled things that are in front of me right now? And I was like, hey, I'm going to show it to you, right? I loved it at the time. So
I would
that's,
too.
No, I mean,
yeah,
this is what I'm gonna say. Basically, you got to be Mars Blackman in the real life version of a Jordan ad. It's just you got the overshoe there, and it's funny to me because when I think of this shoe, I think of you, and this is something I'd mentioned in our pregame, if you will, where there are shoes like that at Nike where the common man approach is, oh, I affiliate this shoe with this athlete. We're blessed in Portland in the sense that we get to know the people behind the shoe, and we get to see those larger than life personalities that aren't on a court or on a pitch. So similar to
nice.
what Ian Williams is to the Monarch, this is how I kind of told you, where I'm like, anytime I see any semblance of the words Mars, Yard, or Overshoe, or now Tom Sachs, I'm gonna be like, oh, that's Aaron. That's the foundation that Aaron is building on. So what I guess I want to use this opportunity then is, how do you feel about things like that? Because I'm sure I'm not the first person to tell you that, hey man, you are the living, breathing embodiment of this shoe. And now as we're having this conversation, it's not just a shoe, it's the theology behind it. Like, do you feel comfortable in
Yeah.
that sense? Or do you also have to take those moments sometimes where you're like, you know what, it's bigger than me?
I think some of that creeps in now. So I met Michael Jordan. I had this shoe, and it just turned into like this thing where people would kind of make fun of me at work about it, and I record certain things, or I'd be walking with people and they'd be wearing regular sneakers and I'd be wearing the overshoe, and we're in Portland and there's a puddle and they kind of like want to walk around the puddle, and I'm like, I'm wearing these so that I can walk through the puddle, so that I film myself walking through the puddle. So I collect all this film and everything, and I'm like, how do I create a story to get more people to wear their shoes? So I have a friend, Ariel. We were talking about it, and I was like, how do I have a private Instagram page, my personal page, and she was like, Aaron, why don't you just create a page for Overshoe and just put everything on this Overshoe page? And I was like, hey, that's a great idea. So then, like, I could just put things on the Overshoe page, and it wasn't tied to Aaron. It was just, hey, look, here's somebody who likes overshoes. So the page starts to build up, and I create all this content, and oh gosh, I hate that word. I take a lot of pictures and I post them on Instagram. It's not content. So yes, thank you. And then I take all of that, and I was like, oh, I can make a film out of this, and let me create a story. So I created a story where I got a pair of Mars Yard Overshoes, and I look inside the box, and there's a wear test. There's a wear test instruction that I kind of discover in the film called 100 Days. You can watch it on YouTube, and I go through the journey of me wearing the Mars Yard Overshoe. And what's really cool is that, like, in the beginning, like Robbie will tell you, like, it might have been 20 people, and I was so ecstatic because I had worked on something that it was a 12-minute film, because I did probably close to like 200 or 300 edits. Like that's what separates like just somebody who puts clips together and something that you can actually call a film. So I put all this together, and then people start reaching out, and they're like, yo, I'm wearing my overshoes because I saw you wearing them. And then it becomes like, hey, how did you break them in? And what did you do about this? And how do you tie them? And then I'm like, okay, I'll put it on the overshoe page, and I'll show people, or I'll give people a glimpse into what wear looks like, because people get the shoe, it's crispy clean, it's white, like it has a white bag on it, and I show them like, hey, watch me walk through some mud trails, watch me rinse the thing off, dry it, and then the next day it has a little grayish tint to it, but it's just as clean. Let me wear it up to Mount Hood, like all those different things. So yeah, I'm just in love with it now, and I think that it's all awesome. I love that people come to the page, that I can kind of inspire people to wear their shoes, which is what all of this really is about.
The inspiration part is really good, because if you can, there's not a sneaker video in the world, like a sneaker based designed towards sneakerheads, that's gonna make somebody go like, if they've been like prizing their M&M 4s, no one's gonna see anything. They're like, okay, I'm gonna wear these M&M 4s today. It's like, no, those are probably still gonna stay on there. So it's great to see that your page could have that influence to say other people, I'm gonna wear this shoe today, because that's what it's all about, is wearing the damn shoe. Wear your shoes. So to circle back to like wearing the shoe, what is the 2.5's makeup like? What have you noticed about it so far? What are some pros or cons?
Compared to, so before I put this 2.5 shoe on, I had been wearing the overshoe for most of 2020. The other shoe that I had is a pair of Space Hippie 03s. What I'll tell you immediately is that this neck skin material that's kind of in the toe box here, and the panels are made out of neck skin. It's here, let me show you. It's translucent, so you can, like, I don't know if you can see, it's kind of you can put different color socks on, but what I'll tell you is that it's extremely thin. It's a light shoe. The upper it kind of feels like it's made of nothing when you're wearing it. I tell people that, like, I went from wearing a space boot to wearing a moon sandal. Like I'm literally walking around in a sandal. I guess some of the other, like, little slight nuances on it, the foam on the tongue is cut a little differently than on other pairs. Probably the biggest and most notable difference is the sticky rubber traction pods on the bottom and on the top, and then on the toe cap. So this is, I don't know if you guys can hear that, but this is, the toe cap is made out of a sticky rubber. Some of the folks that are wear testing this shoes are skateboarders, so they're skateboarding in this shoe. I know that some people in Tom's studio also ride skateboards. Tom rides skateboards. There's a race car driver who's going to be wearing these. We've got a beverage delivery man. We've got nurses, people in the healthcare industry. So really cool. A lot of different people are going to be wearing them. It's a flat shoe. It's you feel the ground because it has a free outsole on it. It definitely has the feel of a much more flexible shoe. Like it's kind of just it truly is like an everyday shoe. Like I haven't worn anything else, and it's for me right now. It's extremely comfortable.
That's Rohit, anything?
Yeah, comfort over everything else. I guess the last thing I would ask is I know as big of a fan as you are of the shoe, you're probably an even bigger fan of your daughter. Has she wanted to scratch that itch and be like, I want my own version? Or have you had those discussions with her where you're like, oh, you know what, let's build you your own? Or how does that go? Because I think she seems to be in that stage where you're probably the coolest person in the world and you're pretty cool, Aaron. Like how do you handle that conversation with the little one?
She knows that daddy has shoes. When she sees the overshoe, when she sees it online, she's like, oh, that's daddy's shoe. My daughter is a unicorn and glitter fanatic. So if it's not pink, if it doesn't have a unicorn, if it doesn't have kitty cats on it, then she's not really up for it. I posted an unboxing video last night. I did an Instagram live and I did an unboxing video, and my wife and my daughter watched it. And my daughter was like, oh, those are daddy's shoes. Like she knows that the shoe with the black on the front of it, because we've walked around the block and we've walked the dog and everything. So she's like, oh, that's daddy's shoe. Like, so she's not really, listen, Rohit, it's, what was that? Last year I got her a pair of those Virgil Off-White, the Air Max 90, the 90 with like the brown, with like that orange that kind of pops.
Desert sand. Desert ore.
Sand.
Desert ore.
Hey,
Yeah.
she hated them. Hated them. And I loved him, and I think that's the first and only time that's going to happen. Because I want her every time. I would be like, "Can you wear this shoe, please? Can you wear this shoe?" And she's like, "I don't like it. It's brown. It's dirty. It's please. Can you just go with Daddy to dead stock one time?" And like Robbie, I think she actually wore them one time in the dead stock, and like we got in the car and she like had them kicked off faster than those Go Fly shoes.
It just shows, like, I mean, there's always got to be the actual kid reaction, because you always see these fresh kids on the internet, and I know damn well 5 minutes in, like, get this outfit off of me, because I was the same way for my parent photo shoots, you know, just like with the Polaroid when we were little. I was like, I don't want to wear the button-up shirt. It's just like it is what it is.
Yeah.
So I mean, Mike had a question specifically, the durability of the 2.5, like. Do you feel an intersection, because you're kind of an ACG fan too? Do you feel an intersection from like a material or makeup standpoint between the 2.5 and like a quality ACG shoe? Is there like overlap?
Probably a little bit in the sticky rubber, the outsole. There's probably a little bit of overlap there. I think the SFB outsole itself is that was originally an ACG. Was the SFB was just its own Jimmy Jam.
Mm-hmm.
The rubber joints, these are probably helping with durability. The neck skin, or like kind of the translucent panels on the shoe, that's the part that I'm not too sure about. I don't know how that's going to hold up. What I can tell you is that, let me take it off again. This is really important. The inside, there's a piece of leather on the inside of the shoe. It's made out of pigskin, and I believe that this is different than the brushed suede that's on the outside, because this part of your foot going in and out, you know, multiple times. There's you can kind of see it in the video here, but like there's just a strip that goes all the way around the inside. That's durable. Like I've taken my overshoe off, you know, numerous times, and that this sort of heel counter piece, it's collapsed, it's broke down, you can pick it back up again, it holds up. I think that this toe cap is probably, from people that I've seen with 2.0s that have really worn them down, probably we're talking like maybe 20 or 30 people, you see this front cap start to peel back, you see the upper and kind of the material around the toe, it starts to peel away in this problem area. So I think that's like, I think that this is meant to last. Oh, I guess that's another thing too. Thank you for saying something. These metal, are these called eyelets
Mm-hmm.
on the listen, guys, I work at Nike and I don't even know this stuff. Um, these eyelets are they're reinforced with rivets, and if you look at the 2.0, these aren't reinforced. So as you wear them over and over again, they would wear away at this U-shaped lace thingy. But on the 2.5, they've added this metallic part, and then on the I don't know, what do you call that thing on the tongue that holds the laces down?
The annoying tongue part. I don't know.
Yes. Well, that piece has been that piece has been double stitched reinforced. So, and I'm not exactly sure, but I believe that the loop on the back heel is actually it's less of like a collapsed loop. It's more of a like it's open, so you can actually put your finger into it. So, besides that, oh, it did come with a pair of leather insoles for the shoes, and that obviously durability, like those are going to last longer than any mesh sock liners or insoles. So I'm gonna be interested to see how we're gonna beat this shoe up in 8 weeks, because like to make a film about the overshoes and to wear the overshoes down to a point where they need to be resold, like that took me like almost a full year of beating the crap out of them, and I'm thinking that like the phase 2 folks, they're going to be beating the crap out of these shoes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's gonna be really interesting to see. Uh, as you were saying earlier, shoes getting to like an unwearable point is not an easy thing unless like you're like I think of like BMX and skateboarders, like the grips of the pegs, I mean of the pedals and the grip tape is going to do it, but most average Joes, especially if you just need to wear it once a day, at least once a day, I'm curious to see how that evolves too.
I was very curious about the bringing in the people that we have, the mind frames and the mindsets of people that are used to wearing, like people that have whole closets full of sneakers, and now it's just like, hey, wear this one for at least 100 days, and how that's going to play on people after like the third or the fourth week. Are they just going to be like, hey, I'm sick of this? Because I'll tell you, there was definitely a point with the overshoe where I was just like, okay, like I need a break, right? But then you jump back into it.
You power through it, but you're only human.
Absolutely.
I mean, you said you only have 5 pairs, but historically, Aaron is a sneakerhead. You don't have to have a million
Absolutely.
pairs in the collection right now to still be a sneakerhead.
To
Listeners out
appreciate
there,
it, sure don't.
same goes out to you. That's really all I had, though. That was really good to know more about the program and to see the shoe. If you're listening on YouTube, or I guess in this case, watching on YouTube, please make sure you like and subscribe to the Sneaker History channel. Aaron, why don't you go ahead and give them the handle for your public page so they can follow along in your escapades?
Sure. Instagram handle is Mars Yard, one word, underscore overshoe, one word. So, um, yeah, and you can also look up the film 100 Days, a film about overshoes. You can find that on YouTube. You can actually follow Mars Yard Overshoe on YouTube as well. I put a bunch of the clips that are available on Instagram. I also put those on YouTube as well. If you're interested in Tom Sachs and you want to learn more, follow Tom Sachs. If you're interested in what the community is doing, follow the Sachsian Syndicate. If you get to my page, you'll see the Sachsian Syndicate. Participate in NikeCraft wear testing. Hashtag NikeCraft wear tester with your videos when the challenges come out from Tom Sachs. We didn't really get to talk about ISRU, Robbie, because we talked about a bunch of different things. ISRU, in situ resource utilization. When you wear your shoes down, you got to repair them. Use what you have. Utilize the resources that are around you. If you need ISRU tips and tricks, you can look at my page. You can look at Tom's page. You can look at the Sachsian Syndicate's page for that information. Was that it, Robbie?
That was it. Rohit, where can they find you?
They can find me at RohitM13 on Instagram, at Roheezy on Twitter. And Aaron, don't you also have another podcast, like your day job?
For those of you that are looking for more inspiration and to put more action into your life, listen to the Stonecutters podcast. You can find that on all major streaming platforms. Yeah, and stay in attack mode.
Always and
Always.
forever, man.
The Stonecutters really is good knowledge. It's you and your friend Will breaking down stuff from like, I mean, you break down being black, you break down parenthood, right? You break down dealing with like frustrations with art. Like you go through a lot, so that's a really really good listen. I have to give one last plug to Coel and Armand for making my Kobe shirt that I've been wearing this whole episode. I forgot to shout that out earlier. But make sure you're following Sneaker History. If you're interested in getting to know more about us, maybe more about your other fellow listeners, go ahead and join our Discord and our Patreon. Great content there. We're starting giveaways, a whole bunch of fun stuff starting in February. So just again, thanks for listening, and everybody have a great day.